The gate of the military base. I'd been here hundreds of times over the months, able to find my way with my eyes closed, but today was different. I held our little bear's hand. He was wearing a dark blue button-down shirt I had just bought for him, and in my other hand, I carried a thermos. Inside was a rich, hearty chicken noodle soup, simmered with fresh herbs, which I had spent half the day preparing. Last week, Donovan had called, complaining of stomach pains. I had specifically consulted a doctor friend who told me that a soup like this was the best thing to soothe gastritis. Leo looked up at me, his eyes shining. "Mommy, will Daddy be happy to see us?" "He'll be thrilled." I stroked his head, imagining a smile spreading across Colonel Donovan Shaw's stern face. I couldn't help but smile myself. We approached the guard's booth. A young, unfamiliar soldier, no older than 20, stood at his post, his face tense and drawn to attention. "Hello, I'm here to see the base commander, Colonel Donovan Shaw. I'm his wife." I smiled politely and lifted the thermos slightly. I brought him a home-cooked lunch. The young soldier looked at me, and something unreadable flickered in his eyes. He picked up the receiver of the internal phone, dialed a number, and spoke a few quiet phrases. I couldn't hear everything, only catching the words "commander's wife" and "at the main gate." Hanging up, his expression grew even stranger. "Ma'am, it would be best if you returned home." He tried to avoid my gaze. "Colonel Shaw is unable to receive visitors at this time." "Unable to receive visitors?" I was taken aback for a moment, then chuckled. "I'm not a visitor, I'm his wife. Just let him know I'm here. He'll understand." The soldier's face turned a deep shade of red. His lips trembled as if the words were stuck in his throat. "What is it?" My smile slowly faded. "Ma'am, really, it's not possible right now." He finally forced the words out, his voice growing quieter. "The Colonel's childhood friend is on the base. Visits are strictly forbidden today." Childhood friend. On the base. Visits forbidden. The words were like ice needles, piercing my ears and coursing through my veins, freezing my heart solid. It was July, the asphalt baking at over 100 degrees, yet I was shivering uncontrollably at the gate of the military installation. I instinctively glanced down at Leo. He was looking from me to the soldier with confusion, not yet understanding what had happened. I knelt down and covered his small, soft ears with my palms, pressing so tightly that my own fingers trembled. "Leo, Mommy's just going to talk to the man for a second. Don't listen, okay?" Leo nodded obediently. Remaining on my haunches, I looked up at the young soldier. I was looking up at him, but my gaze made him take an involuntary half-step back. "What did you just say?" I asked. My voice so quiet I barely recognized it myself. "His childhood friend, Mrs. Shaw. I'm just relaying an order." The soldier was panicking. "Who gave this order?" "Sergeant Evans, the Colonel's ed." "Sergeant Evans." I hissed the name through my teeth. Then I stood up, pulled my phone from my purse, and dialed. 2 rings, then the call connected. "Alex," I said. The voice of my middle brother, Alexander Blackwood, was smiling. Well, our little princess. What brings you to call your big brother? Did that Shaw character upset you again?" "Alex, I'm standing at the main gate of Donovan Shaw's base." I articulated each word with chilling precision. "He gave an order not to let me in. He said his childhood friend is inside and visits are forbidden." Silence hung on the other end of the line. Alexander Blackwood had given 20 years to the Army, rising from a platoon leader to a lieutenant general commanding the entire corps. I knew him too well. The quieter he became, the more terrifying his rage. "Sloan." His voice dropped, becoming like a frozen winter river. "What do you want?" "I want the Blackwood family to conduct a complete sweep," I said. With one hand, I still covered Leo's ears. With the other, I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I'll tell Nicholas myself, and Anne too. Donovan Shaw and his childhood friend are not to get away with this. No mercy." "Done." Alex said only one word and hung up. I put the phone back in my purse and knelt again, removing my hands from my son's ears. Leo blinked. "Mommy, are we not going inside?" "No, we're not." I lifted him into my arms. The 4-year-old was already getting heavy. I adjusted him, pressed my cheek against his, and said, "Mommy's going to take you home and make you some mac and cheese with bacon. Would you like that?" "But what about Daddy? We're not giving him the soup?" I looked down at the thermos on the ground. The broth I had simmered for hours, skimming it 3 times, adding the finest spices, that fragrant, clear broth. I had poured it into our best thermos and driven it here with such care. I lifted my foot and kicked the thermos. The lid flew off to the side, The golden broth spilled onto the asphalt. Homemade noodles and pieces of chicken fell into the dust. The young soldier opened his mouth but didn't dare say a word. "Let's go, Leo." I turned, holding my son. My heels clicked sharply against the concrete slabs. Clack, clack. Every step was firm and confident. Lying on my shoulder, Leo looked back at the broken thermos and said quietly, "Mommy, what a waste of soup." "I wouldn't even give it to a dog," I replied. I carried Leo to the parking lot, placed him in his car seat, and buckled him in. Then I got behind the wheel, started the engine, but didn't drive off immediately. I sat in the car, staring at the gates of the base. I had been walking through those gates for 4 years, ever since I married Donovan. Each time, the soldiers at the checkpoint would salute and greet me. I thought it was respect, a sign that they considered me one of their own. Only today did I understand that those gates had never truly been open to me. His childhood friend, Catherine Adler. Of course, I knew about her. They had grown up together on a military base. Their families were friends. Donovan's mother had even joked once that the children would grow up and get married. Then Catherine left to study in Western Europe, and it was never mentioned again. After Donovan and I got married, his mother mentioned Catherine once. My older sister, Anne, immediately shut her down. The past stays in the past. Donovan is marrying my younger sister now. I hope you understand the difference, Eleanor. At the time, I thought my sister was being too harsh. I even asked her to be gentler, believing Donovan's love was enough for me and nothing else mattered. 4 years. I had given him a son. I ran the entire household, cared for his parents. When his father was in the hospital, I spent 7 days and nights by his bedside. For his mother's anniversary, I started preparing a month in advance and hand-knitted a cashmere shawl, working my fingers raw. Where was Catherine Adler when I was doing all of this? I didn't know. But now I knew she was back, and I had been cast out of my own husband's world. I took out my phone and opened a message thread. I wrote to my older brother. "Nicholas, I need you to run a check on someone. Catherine Adler. Recently returned from abroad. I need a full dossier. Who she met, what she did, where she lives. Send." Then I opened another chat. "Anne, Alex is already on it. I need you to do something. Compile a complete list of all the resources, projects, and credit lines the Shaw family has received thanks to the Blackwood Corporation. Maximum detail. Send." I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pulled away. Driving out of the parking lot, I took one last look at those gates, hit the gas, and drove away without looking back. Back home, I changed Leo's clothes, washed his hands, and set him up in the living room to watch cartoons. Then I went into the bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of the dresser. Inside were things I hadn't touched in a long time. A stock transfer agreement. Shares in the Blackwood Corporation. Before he died, my father had transferred 15% of the company's shares to my name. I had never been involved in the business. My older brother, Nicholas, managed everything. Every year, after dividends were distributed, he would transfer the money to my account. I never even looked at the numbers. I didn't need them. But there was one clause in that agreement that I always remembered. A shareholder holding no less than 15% of the shares has veto power. I took out the agreement. The paper had yellowed slightly, but the signatures were clear. My father's signature. My signature. I ran my finger over my father's name, and my eyes suddenly stung. "Dad," I whispered. "I promise. You won't be ashamed of me." The phone rang. It was Nicholas. Sloan. His voice was very calm, but I knew he was pretending. The men of the Blackwood family were always like that. The stronger their fury, the calmer they became, like the ocean before a storm. Still on the surface, but with deadly currents raging below. "The dossier on Catherine is in your email," Nicholas said. "Take a look, then we'll talk. But I can tell you right now, she has a very dirty past. I mean, those years abroad. Officially, she was studying. In reality, she was involved in some extremely questionable projects. Our lawyers are digging into the details now. We'll have results in 3 days." "Okay," I took a deep breath. "Nicholas, there's something else." "I'm listening." "I want to revoke all investments and contracts the Blackwood Corporation has provided to the Shaw family." A moment of silence on the other end. When Nicholas spoke again, there was a faint smile in his voice, but it was a cold one. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "All right," he said. "When do we start?" "Right now." After hanging up, I opened my email. The dossier on Catherine was extensive. Small font, resumes, photos, social network maps. I scrolled through page after page. Catherine Adler, 31, 2 years older than me. Master's degree in materials science from a European university. Worked for 3 years at a local research institute after graduating. Returned to the States at the beginning of this year. After her return, she took a job at a company located near Donovan's military base. She rented an apartment less than a mile from the base. I kept scrolling and suddenly saw a photo. The picture was blurry. Night. The dim light of a street lamp. A man and a woman standing by a dark green Jeep. The man was Donovan Shaw. The woman was Catherine Adler. Donovan was leaning one hand on the roof of the car, looking down at her. Catherine had her head tilted up. The distance between them was less than 4 inches. In the bottom right corner was the date the photo was taken, 3 days ago. I stared at the photo for a long time. 3 days ago, Donovan had texted me saying he was extremely busy this week and asked me not to visit the base. He said he was preparing for a major training exercise and was staying late every night. So this was what his late nights at work looked like. I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and shut my eyes. My mind was in chaos, yet at the same time there was a strange clarity. I remembered how Donovan had proposed to me 4 years ago. He got down on one knee, held out a ring, and said, "Catherine, will you marry me?" My sister Anne had burst out laughing. "You got the name wrong and you're still proposing?" Donovan's face had flushed instantly. He began to apologize profusely. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just so nervous. Sloan, will you marry me?" At the time, we all thought he was just flustered. I opened my eyes. Catherine. Sloan. What an irony. My sister Anne called. "Sloan, I've checked everything." Anne's voice was sharp and businesslike. "I've drafted a preliminary list of what the Shaws got from the Blackwood Corporation. 12 construction contracts totaling over $250 million. 37 suppliers, all our old reliable partners. 5 bank guarantees for a total of $85 million. She paused, and her voice turned to ice. "There's something else you don't know. Donovan's father's company was on the verge of bankruptcy 3 years ago. It was Nicholas who, on behalf of the corporation, injected $60 million to save them. When they took the capital, the Shaws signed an agreement with performance targets. They were obligated to reach a certain profit level within 3 years. This is the 3rd year, and their profits aren't even close to the target. Why did no one tell me about this agreement?" I asked. "Nicholas didn't want to worry you. You had just had Leo. Your health was fragile. We decided not to say anything. We thought, well, they're family, we should help." "Who knew they would?" Anne didn't finish, but I knew what she wanted to say. "Organize a meeting with Nicholas and Alex tomorrow evening at the old family estate," I said. "I need to make an announcement." "All right," Anne replied, then added, "Sloan, whatever you decide, we're on your side." After hanging up, I went into the living room. Leo was sitting on the couch watching cartoons, hugging a plush bear. When he saw me, he ran over with a smile and hugged my leg. "Mommy, I'm hungry." "Mommy will make dinner now." I knelt, picked him up, and kissed his cheek. Leo wrapped his arms around my neck and said in his little voice, "Mommy, let's not go see Daddy anymore." "I don't love Daddy anymore." I froze. "Why don't you love him?" "Because Mommy cried today." I hadn't cried. At least, not in front of Leo. But children understand everything. "Okay." I hugged him even tighter. "We won't go see him anymore." That evening, after putting Leo to bed, I sat alone on the balcony. My phone screen lit up. A message from Donovan. "Sloan, I heard about what happened today. Don't overthink it. Catherine came to see me for work. Her current company has a joint project with our base. She's the project lead. I told the guard not to let anyone in because I didn't want us to be distracted. It wasn't directed at you. As soon as I'm done with things in a few days, I'll come home and explain everything." I read the message, took a sip of water, and then replied, "Okay, take care of your work." After sending those 5 words, I turned the phone face down. Outside, the nightscape of New York City stretched out, a sea of lights. I had lived in this city for 29 years. Spoiled by my parents, protected by my brothers and sister. I had never known hardship. When I married Donovan, I thought I had found another person I could lean on. Now I realized, you can only rely on yourself. The phone lit up again. A short message from my brother Alex. 2 lines. "Cleanup has begun. Step 1. Freezing all associated accounts. Step 2. Revoking all provided resources. Step 3. Awaiting your instructions." I replied, "Acknowledged." Then I deleted my entire message history with Donovan, from the very first one. just as I was about to erase these 4 years of marriage. The next morning, I was awakened by a vibrating phone. It wasn't my alarm. The frequency was too dense. I opened my eyes. The screen was painfully bright. Messages were pouring in one after another. I picked up the phone and saw they were all from Donovan's mother, my mother-in-law. Sloan, what is the meaning of this? Why did your brother suddenly pull the funding for the projects? Do you have any idea that William fought for that project for 6 months? And you just pull it? Is this how the Blackwood family does business? Answer me immediately. I leaned against the headboard, read all the messages from beginning to end, exited the messaging app, and opened my contacts. Before I could press the call button, the phone rang. The screen displayed Donovan Shaw. I stared at those 2 words for 3 seconds, then answered. Sloan Blackwood, have you lost your mind? Donovan's voice burst through the phone. He rarely spoke to me in that tone. In 4 years of marriage, he had been fairly gentle. Even when he was annoyed, he never yelled like that. But today was different. My father just called. He said the Blackwoods suddenly cut off all funding. Hundreds of workers are waiting to start their shifts on the construction site. The money for materials is frozen. Are you trying to drive our family into the ground? The fury in his voice was like magma. Just because I didn't let you on the base yesterday, you pull a stunt like this? Sloan, when did you become so irrational? I held the phone slightly away from my ear and waited for him to finish. Are you done? I asked. No, he exhaled heavily, trying to calm himself. Sloan, I told you, Catherine was here for work. If you don't believe me, I can have people from the project team confirm it. You can't blow up a simple misunderstanding into a scandal like this. How are we supposed to face people? Donovan Shaw, I said his full name. My voice was very calm, so calm that it surprised me a little. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Answer them honestly. Ask. How many times have you seen Catherine since she returned from abroad? Yes, on the other end. 3 or 4 times, strictly for work. 3 or 4, I repeated. And did you communicate with her before she came back? Silence. This was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of someone hit in a sore spot, who hadn't had time to invent a lie but was afraid to confess. Another block of ice settled in my chest. You did, I answered for him. And more than once. Sloan. Second question, I interrupted him. 3 days ago, Monday evening. Where were you? I was on the base, preparing for the exercise. Are you sure? My voice finally changed, an icy smirk creeping in. Donnie, think carefully. Do you remember every minute of that Monday? Where were you at 9:30 p.m. and with whom? Another long silence, longer than the last. Then his voice became low, full of the defensiveness of a cornered man. Are you having me followed? Having you followed? I laughed, and the sound grated on even my own ears. Donovan, are you even worth following? You don't even know what sins you have to your name. Nothing happened between us, he blurted out and immediately faltered, because that phrase was tantamount to a confession. My hand was trembling as I held the phone, but my voice remained firm. Did I mention Catherine's name? You were so quick to take it personally. Sloan, you're provoking me. I'm not provoking you. I'm saying if the shoe fits, wear it. I could hear his heavy breathing on the line. It sounded like he was pacing nervously in his office. Then the pacing stopped, and his voice softened. Sloan, I admit, I saw her a few times. But we were just catching up. We grew up together. She came back, invited me to dinner. How could I refuse? Please, don't invent things. You and Leo are the only ones in my heart. Catching up. Invited me to dinner. You and Leo are the only ones in my heart. Such familiar phrases. In every cheap soap opera, the cheating husband says exactly that. Donovan, I said, do you know what Leo asked yesterday? He was taken aback. What did Leo ask? He asked if Daddy still loved us. Silence on the other end. And he also said he doesn't want to go see Daddy anymore, I continued. He's only 4 years old. He understands everything. When you ordered your aide not to let me in, did you think about the fact that your son was there? Did you think about how it would feel for him to see his own mother turned away at the door? Donovan's voice finally cracked with guilt. I didn't think about that then. Sloan, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to hurt you. It doesn't matter anymore, I cut him off. You don't matter anymore. I hung up, turned off the phone, and threw it on the bed. On the nightstand lay the stock transfer agreement I had forgotten to put away yesterday. I flipped to the last page. My father's signature was still there. The ink had faded slightly, but the lines were still clear. Dad, You said the daughters of the Blackwood family should never have to endure insults, I said quietly. You're gone, but I won't let myself be humiliated. I turned the phone back on and called Anne. Anne, write out the terms of that profit agreement for me, point by point. I want to know the exact consequences of their failure to comply. Maximum detail. Already done. My sister's voice was businesslike, as always. 3 years ago, when Nicholas injected the $60 million, the Shaws signed a contract. They committed to reaching a net profit of at least $80 million within 3 years. But according to the reports I pulled yesterday, their cumulative profit for the 3 years is only $43 million. They didn't even make half. The penalty is a full buyout. The Blackwood Corporation has the right to demand that the Shaws buy back all shares belonging to the corporation at the original price, plus pay a 20% penalty within 90 days. If the Shaws can't find the money, we take all the company's assets. Anne paused, and a predatory note entered her voice. I already did the math yesterday. $60 million principal, plus a 20% penalty. That's $72 million. In their current state, they couldn't scrape together 10. Excellent, I said. Do one more thing. Consolidate into one document all the resources, projects, loans, and guarantees they've received from us over the last 3 years. Specify the amounts, dates, and responsible parties. What for? So everyone can see how the Shaw family rose on the back of the Blackwood family, and how they repaid us. Silence on the other end. Sloane, Anne's voice unexpectedly warmed. Have you thought this through? If you take this step, there's no going back to Donovan. Anne, I replied. When he gave the order not to let me in, the way back was already closed. Anne didn't try to dissuade me further. The women of our family never ask you to look back. The documents will be with you after lunch, she said, and hung up. I went to the kitchen to make Leo breakfast. I fried an egg, made toast, and warmed some milk. Leo climbed into his high chair by himself and waited patiently. Mommy, are we going to daycare today? We are. I placed a plate in front of him. Eat up, and Mommy will take you. Leo took a bite of toast, stuffed his cheeks, and mumbled indistinctly, Mommy, a man called the house phone yesterday. I froze. What man? He said his name was Sergeant Evans, that he works with Daddy. He asked if Mommy was home. I said Mommy was putting me to bed, and he hung up. Sergeant Evans, Donovan's aide, the same one who had relayed his order yesterday. Why was he calling our house? I sat down, trying to look natural. Leo, did the man say anything else? No, Leo shook his head. Just asked if Mommy was home. I stood up. An alarm bell went off inside me. The sergeant wouldn't have called on his own initiative. He only follows Donovan's orders. Donovan told him to call to check something. To see if I was home? To check if I had gone somewhere? Or was he trying to cover his bases in case I started digging? I went into the bedroom and started searching the house. Closets, drawers, shelves in the study. I searched for half an hour. In the very bottom drawer of the desk, I found an unsealed envelope. Inside were several sheets of paper. I pulled them out. It was an insurance policy. Policyholder, Donovan Shaw. Insured, Donovan Shaw. Beneficiary, Catherine Adler. I read the policy 3 times. Date of issue, 3 months ago. Insurance amount, $2 million. Beneficiary, Catherine Adler. In the relationship to insured field, it said, friend. Friend. He had a wife. He had a 4-year-old son. And the beneficiary was a friend. My hands were shaking as I held the policy. Not from fear, but from a bone-deep chill. 3 months ago, he was coming home every evening like clockwork. Sometimes he stayed late, sometimes he went on business trips. Everything seemed normal. The only difference was that 3 months ago, he had taken out a new life insurance policy, writing another woman's name on it. I photographed the policy and sent it to Anne. She replied instantly, just found this at home. I typed, my fingers hurting from the force. Donovan bought a life insurance policy. The beneficiary is Catherine Adler. Anne didn't reply immediately. About 3 minutes later, she called back. Sloane, don't do anything right now. Her voice was cold as steel. Put the policy back. Don't spook them. I've already instructed the lawyers to pull all of the Shaw's contracts. Our top divorce lawyer will contact you after lunch. You need to do only one thing. Find out what other assets Donovan might have transferred. Okay. And one more thing. Anne paused. Alex said he already called Donovan's superior officer this morning. All equipment and funding provided by the Blackwood Corporation for his training exercise are being withdrawn as of today. Whether he holds on to his command is up to him to figure out. I hung up, put the policy back in the envelope, and placed it exactly where I found it. Then I took Leo to daycare. In the car, Leo sat in his car seat, swinging his legs and humming a song. Sunlight streamed through the window onto his chubby cheeks. His eyelashes were long and curled like fans. Watching him in the rearview mirror, I remembered the day I first held him, 4 years ago. So small, so soft, crying like a blind kitten. Donovan had stood by the hospital bed, awkwardly holding him with red-rimmed eyes. He had said, "Sloan, thank you." He said he would take care of me for the rest of his life, that our son would be the happiest child in the world. 4 years had passed, and the man who promised to take care of me for life had written another woman's name on an insurance policy. After daycare, I didn't go home. I drove straight to the Blackwood Corporation's headquarters in the city's financial district. My older brother's office was on the top floor. Panoramic windows on 3 sides offered a view of the entire city. When I walked in, Nicholas was on the phone. Seeing me, he gestured to the sofa. His desk was piled high with documents, and a complex shareholder structure diagram glowed on his monitor. Finishing his call, Nicholas came and sat across from me. "The lawyers are done with Catherine Adler." He got straight to the point, pushing a folder toward me. During her years abroad, her research projects were closely tied to foreign military development. When she returned to New York, she got a job at a company whose main shareholder is a distant relative of Donovan Shaw. I opened the folder and began to read. The most important part is here. Nicholas flipped to the last page and pointed to a paragraph. The project Catherine is currently leading is a technology cooperation agreement with Donovan's base. The contract amount is $80 million. But according to our data, her company's actual technological capabilities are nowhere near worth that much. Are you saying they're laundering money through this contract? Nicholas's gaze grew heavy. And who do you think is doing it? Everything instantly clicked into place in my head. Catherine's return, the base project led by Donovan, the $80 million technology contract, Catherine's company. These dots connected into a straight line pointing directly at Donovan Shaw. "Nicholas, is this enough evidence?" Nicholas looked at me, a faint smirk playing on his lips, exactly like Alex's, the specific smirk of the Blackwood men, cold and confident. "Not yet," he said, "but add the profit agreement. Add the insurance policy. Add today's revocation of investments. The Shaws won't last 3 days." His phone rang. Nicholas answered, listened for a few seconds, and his smirk widened. Hanging up, he said, "Donovan's father is here." Causing a scene in the main lobby on the first floor. Why did he come? Why else? To beg for mercy. Nicholas stood up and adjusted his cuffs. "Let's go down and have a look." As we rode the elevator down, Nicholas looked down at me. "Not scared?" I shook my head. The elevator doors opened. William Shaw stood in the middle of the massive lobby, flanked by 2 security guards. He was in a wrinkled shirt, his face drenched in sweat, his hair disheveled. He looked completely different from the respectable man I knew. Seeing me exit the elevator, he rushed toward me. Sloan dear, talk to your brother. You can't just pull the funding. If the construction stops, our family is finished." His voice was hoarse and broken. "I know Donnie messed up. I'll knock some sense into him. But you can't do this." "Mr. Shaw," I interrupted him calmly, without emotion. "You say Donnie messed up. In what way exactly did he mess up?" The elder Shaw was stunned. He couldn't find an answer. Nicholas intervened, speaking as casually as if discussing the weather. "Because before coming here, he called Donovan. And what did Donovan say? That he did nothing wrong, and my sister is just making a mountain out of a molehill." William's face paled. "You, father and son, decided that because a daughter of the Blackwood family married into yours, she became your property, that you could treat her however you pleased?" Nicholas took a step forward. He was a head taller than the elder Shaw and looked down on him. "Mr. Shaw, you're a businessman. In business, everything should be reciprocal. You took everything from the Blackwoods, and in return, you mistreated our sister. Did you think such a cheap bargain existed in this world?" William's lips trembled. "And another thing." Nicholas took a document from an assistant and handed it to Shaw. "This is the financing agreement from 3 years ago. The 3 years are up. Your profit is $37 million short of the target. According to the contract, you are obligated to buy back the Blackwood Corporation's stake within 90 days and pay a 20% penalty. That comes to $72 million. William took the document with trembling hands. The paper rustled loudly. 72 million? Where are we going to get that kind of money? Then we'll proceed according to the contract. Nicholas's voice was completely devoid of emotion. The Blackwood Corporation will seize all of your company's assets. William staggered as if he'd been punched in the chest. He looked at Nicholas, then at me. His lips trembled for a long time before he squeezed out, "Sloane, you can't do this. You're our daughter-in-law." I looked at his aged, desperate face. There wasn't a shred of pity in my soul. "Mr. Shaw," I said, "when Donovan ordered them not to let me in, was he thinking about me being your daughter-in-law?" Shaw couldn't answer. When he wrote Catherine Adler's name as the beneficiary on an insurance policy, was he thinking about me being his wife? William's eyes widened in shock. Apparently, he didn't know about that. "Your family never considered me one of your own from the very beginning." I enunciated each word. "So don't ask for mercy." I turned and walked back to the elevator. As the doors closed, I heard the elder Shaw shouting something after me, but the soundproofing in the elevator was perfect. Nicholas stood beside me. After a moment of silence, he said, "The lawyer will contact you after lunch. Have you thought about the terms of the divorce?" "I don't need to think. I've already decided everything." "And Leo, what will you do about custody?" "Custody is mine alone." I looked at the numbers changing on the elevator's display. Donovan Shaw can't even dream of it. By the time I got home, it was evening. I sat in the living room, a stack of papers in front of me. Contracts, the insurance policy, the investigation into Catherine, the Shaw's financial statements. Each paper was like a knife, and they were all pointed at one person. Outside, it grew dark. The city lights began to twinkle on, one by one. The phone rang. My middle brother, Alex. "Sloane, phase 1 of the cleanup is complete." His voice was firm and confident. "All of Donovan's accounts tied to our corporation are frozen. Funding for his military projects has been revoked. The Corps Command is already aware. They held an emergency meeting this afternoon, and Donovan was called on the carpet." Alex paused. "His authority as a base commander has been temporarily suspended pending investigation." Suspended. The very status of base commander for which he left early in the morning and came back late at night, which was more important to him than me and his son. The very status that allowed him to bring his childhood friend onto the base and gave him the audacity to turn his own wife away at the gate. "Alex," I said, "that's not enough." On the other end of the line, Alex let out a short, harsh laugh. "Of course, it's not enough," he said. "This is just the first step. Just watch, little sister." I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, a call came from an unknown number. "Hello, is this Mrs. Sloane Shaw?" The voice belonged to a middle-aged man. The tone was official but had a fawning quality. "This is Colonel Mitchell from the base's command office. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we will be holding a formal ceremony to award distinguished officers. Colonel Shaw is among the honorees. We would like to invite you to attend as his spouse. Would that be convenient for you?" A formal ceremony. A distinguished officer. An honoree. I held the phone and almost laughed out loud. "Colonel," I replied, "I will definitely be there." After hanging up, I sat on the sofa. The bright sun shone outside, casting golden light on the hardwood floor. Leo was already at daycare. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I stood up and went to my walk-in closet. In the very back hung a dress I had never worn. An emerald velvet evening gown. A gift from my sister Anne for my wedding. She had said at the time, "The daughters of the Blackwood family must have an outfit in which they can walk onto any battlefield with dignity." For 4 years, I had found no occasion to wear it. I took out the dress, hung it in front of the mirror, and looked at it for a long time. The occasion had arrived. The next morning, I dropped Leo off at daycare. As he got out of the car, he clung to my neck. "Mommy, who's picking me up today?" "Mommy will be here." I kissed his forehead. "Mommy will definitely be here." Leo held out his pinky. I hooked mine with his tiny one. On the way to the base, I turned on some music. Not some aggressive rock, but a very old song, the one my dad loved to listen to most. The cityscape flew by outside the window. My heart beat steadily and calmly. At the main gate checkpoint, the guard checked my ID and saluted. "Good morning, Mrs. Shaw. Please proceed." I walked inside, my heels clicking. The hem of the emerald velvet dress fell to my ankles, shimmering with every step. Passing officers turned to look, but I didn't care. I walked slowly and confidently. The auditorium was huge and filled with people in uniform. A banner hung on the stage. Base Awards ceremony. From a distance, I saw Donovan. He was sitting in the third row, on the aisle, in his dress uniform. The epaulets on his shoulders gleamed under the lights. He hadn't noticed me yet. I headed for the section for officers' families. Women and children were seated there. Someone recognized me and started whispering. "Look, it's the wife of Colonel Shaw, the daughter of the Blackwoods. They say her middle brother is the Corps commander, and her older brother runs that huge corporation. Colonel Shaw really lucked out. Lucked out. I found an empty seat in the very last row." Before sitting, my gaze flickered to a side door near the stage. The door was ajar, and a few people were standing there. One silhouette was very familiar. Catherine Adler. She was here, too. I looked away and sat up straight. The woman next to me leaned over. "You're Mrs. Shaw, right? That's a beautiful dress." I smiled at her. "Thank you." "I saw the list of awardees," she continued. "Your husband is getting the top prize. They say his technological cooperation project is the most important one on the base this year." "Really?" I kept smiling. "That is indeed an outstanding achievement." The ceremony began. Speeches from leadership, reports, waves of applause. Donovan Shaw's name was mentioned several times, and each time the hall applauded. He sat with a straight back, his profile firm and confident. I looked at him and remembered our first meeting 4 years ago. He had stood just like that, in uniform, in a crowd, seemingly radiating light. My father had pointed him out and said, "Sloan, that young man is going to go far. Dad, if you're watching me from heaven, you're going to be disappointed today." And now, a few words from Base Commander, Colonel Donovan Shaw. A thunder of applause. Donovan stood, buttoned the top button of his uniform, and walked with a crisp stride to the podium. He stood before the microphone, surveyed the hall, a polite smile on his lips. "Honored commanders, fellow officers." His low voice filled the hall. "It is a great honor to stand here. The successful progress of our project would not have been possible without the support of the command and the dedicated work of my subordinates." He paused. "And also, without the full cooperation of Miss Catherine Adler. As the project lead, she brought cutting-edge technologies from abroad, making a crucial contribution to the modernization of our equipment. I want to express my sincere gratitude to her." The hall applauded again. Sitting in the last row, I slowly clapped my hands 3 times, and then I stood up. The emerald velvet shimmered coldly in the spotlight. I started walking down the aisle toward the stage. Clack, clack, clack. My heels echoed on the stone floor. Sharp and measured. People began to turn around. First one, then dozens. Donovan was still speaking into the microphone, but his voice suddenly faltered and broke off. He saw me. His face changed 3 times in a fraction of a second. Surprise, panic, then an attempt to regain composure. He gripped the microphone stand so tightly his knuckles turned white. I didn't stop. I walked past the rows, past the hundreds of eyes fixed on me. A whisper went through the hall. People craned their necks, trying to understand what was happening. I reached the stage and stopped. All attention was on me. The officers on the dais exchanged bewildered glances. A tense silence fell over the hall, like the moment before a thunderstorm. "Sloan," Donovan opened his mouth. The microphone was on, and his choked voice echoed through the hall. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer him. I turned to face the hall, to the hundreds of eyes. Honored commanders, esteemed officers. My voice wasn't loud, but in the absolute silence, every word carried to the back rows. "I am Donovan Shaw's wife, Sloan Blackwood." A murmur grew in the hall. It may be out of line for me to speak here, but there are things I've held inside for too long. My voice was firm, as if I were telling someone else's story. "You just heard Colonel Shaw thank Catherine Adler." At the mention of her name, the murmur intensified. "Catherine Adler is indeed his childhood friend," I continued. "They grew up together on the same base, and Colonel Shaw never hid their strong friendship from me." Donovan's face twisted. He took a step forward and hissed, "Sloan, get down from there. We'll talk at home." I gave him a brief glance, and that look made him take an involuntary step back. But he did hide something else from me. I took my phone out of my purse. For example, how many times he's seen her since her return. Or the fact that after 4 years of marriage, he took out a $2 million life insurance policy where the beneficiary is not his 4-year-old son and not his wife, but this very same childhood friend. I held up my phone. The screen showed the photo of the insurance policy. The hall erupted. "What insurance?" The The beneficiary is Adler? No way, it can't be. Donovan's face turned deathly pale. In 2 leaps, he was in front of me, reaching for my phone. I stepped back. He missed, stumbling. The tails of his dress uniform flew up absurdly. "Sloan!" he yelled, his voice laced with panic. "Not here." "What, not here?" I raised my voice. "Donovan, 2 days ago, I came to the main gate with our son to bring you lunch. You ordered your aide not to let us in because your childhood friend was inside. In 100-degree heat, your son stood in the sun and asked, 'Mommy, does Daddy not love us anymore?'" The hall fell instantly silent. It was the dead silence of hundreds of people holding their breath. Donovan's Adam's apple bobbed. He opened his mouth to say something, but under the gaze of hundreds of eyes, his lips seemed glued shut. I grew up in the Blackwood family. My parents taught me about fairness. I scanned the hall. I won't list everything the Shaw family has received from us over the years. 12 construction contracts for $250 million, 37 suppliers, bank guarantees for $85 million. 3 years ago, the Shaw family company nearly went bankrupt, and it was my older brother who injected $60 million to save it. I paused. $60 million would last an ordinary family 10 lifetimes. We gave that money without a second thought, because Donovan was my husband. But how did they repay us? I took out a second document. With that investment came a contract. In 3 years, the Shaws' profits didn't even reach half of the target. According to the contract, they now owe the Blackwood Corporation $72 million. Someone in the hall gasped. "They don't have that kind of money," I stated, enunciating every word. But the Blackwood family didn't crush them. We didn't want to put me in the middle. And what did Donovan do? I turned to him. He stood on the stage, under the spotlights, sweat glistening on his forehead. His uniform was still perfectly pressed, but he himself looked as if his spine had been removed. He could barely stand. One of the senior officers on the dais stood up, his face dark with anger. "Shaw, is what your wife is saying true?" Donovan didn't answer. He looked at me with a gaze that mixed fear, anger, humiliation, and a plea. "And one more thing. I opened an audio file on my phone. This is a recording of a conversation yesterday between Catherine Adler and Donovan Shaw. I don't know how this recording ended up on my phone. Maybe someone just got too disgusted watching all of this." I turned back to the audience. "Esteemed officers, would you like to listen?" Donovan's face turned gray. "Sloan." He took a step toward me, a plea in his voice I had never heard before. "Don't." I hit play. Catherine's voice purred from my phone. The microphone picked it up and broadcast it through the speakers to the entire hall. Soft, cooing, deliberately intimate. "Donnie, your wife isn't going to be mad about what happened at the gate, is she? I really was just there on business. I didn't know she was coming. If I'd known, I wouldn't have come." Then came Donovan's voice. Tired, reassuring. "It's fine, Sloan. That's just how she is. Don't worry about it." But she poured out the soup. I wanted to explain, and she wouldn't even listen. "Donnie, honestly, do you put up with her tantrums at home too? Enough. Don't talk about her." Then, a short silence, and Catherine's voice, even quieter, with a slight laugh. "Donnie, tell me, if I hadn't gone abroad back then, would it be me standing next to you now?" No answer from Donovan came from the speakers, only silence. And that silence was more eloquent than any words. The recording ended. It was so quiet in the hall you could hear a pin drop. Hundreds of eyes stared at Shaw. His lips were trembling, his fingers were trembling. He looked at me as if his whole world had collapsed, leaving only the raw, naked fear of public disgrace. I put the phone away. My voice was as calm as still water. "Donovan, you said you would take care of me, that you would give our son and me a complete family. And what did you do? You ordered them not to let me in. You put another woman's name on an insurance policy. You stayed silent when she asked if she could have been in my place, because in your heart, you had already answered that question." I raised my hand and removed the diamond wedding ring from my finger. In front of everyone, I placed it on the dais table. Click. The sound was quiet, but the microphone amplified it throughout the hall. "Colonel Donovan Shaw, I no longer have any use for you." A roar went through the hall. Some people jumped to their feet, others took photos with their phones, some shouted in outrage. The room boiled over like a cauldron. The senior officer from the dais, his face dark, approached Donovan and spat through his teeth. "Shaw, explain yourself. Immediately." Donovan stood motionless. He looked at me. His gaze held everything. Humiliation, rage, a refusal to accept what was happening. His lips moved, but he couldn't make a sound. I knew what he wanted to say. Sloan, you can't do this. This is a military base. This is my unit. You'll destroy my career. But he was silent, because every word I said was true. Chaos erupted in the hall. Subordinates rushed to restore order. Someone tried to intervene. Amid the noise, I turned to the audience and gave a slight bow. The gesture silenced everyone for a second. Honorable comrades, my voice was steady. I apologize for interrupting your ceremony, but I take full responsibility for every word I've said. All evidence has already been forwarded to the Inspector General and Army Counterintelligence. Let the law and the leadership decide who is right. I straightened up and gave Donovan one last look. Goodbye, Colonel. I turned and walked toward the exit. The velvet hem of my dress swayed in time with my steps. My heels clicked on the floor. Clack, clack, clack. Each sound was as clear and hard as a final verdict. Behind me, I left a buzzing hall, the shouts of superiors, the clicks of cameras, and the unending whispers of hundreds of people. Someone called my name, but I didn't look back. When I walked out of the auditorium, the July sun hit my face, so hot it made my eyes water. But I didn't cry. I walked down the tree-lined path to the parking lot. Tall birch trees rustled in the wind. Unfamiliar soldiers passing by watched me with surprise. I reached my car, opened the door, and got in. As soon as the door closed, all the noise of the outside world vanished. I sat behind the wheel, my hands on the steering wheel, and stared straight ahead. After a long moment, I lowered my head to the wheel and covered my face with my hands. The phone rang. It was my sister, Anne. Sloan. My brother just got the news. Anne's voice was filled with unconcealed triumph. Donovan's award was rescinded on the spot. People from the IG and CI have already started preliminary questioning. His command authority is suspended. And that tech project with Catherine is frozen too. Good, I replied. And one more thing. Anne paused. The IRS and the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit just raided Catherine's company. Nicholas said the dirty financial trails they found guarantee her a couple of years in prison, at the very least. I understand, I repeated. How are you? I'm fine. I lifted my head and started the engine. I'm going to pick up Leo from daycare. The engine rumbled, steady and powerful. I put the car in drive, pressed the gas, and slowly drove out of the base gates. In the rearview mirror, those gates grew smaller and smaller. This time, no one stopped me. On the way to the daycare, Anne called again. Sloan, there's an update from the tax audit. Her voice trembled with excitement. A sister rarely showed such emotion, which meant the news was truly significant. Catherine's company accounts had the $80 million from the government contract, but the fund movements are completely illegal. $3 million went to a classified offshore account, and another $500,000 was transferred to her personal account. Is that enough for prison? For prison? Anne scoffed. This is a major white-collar crime. We're talking 10 years in a federal prison, minimum. Not enough, I said. Anne was silent for a second. You have something else? I do. I gripped the steering wheel, stopping at a red light near the daycare. Nicholas mentioned her dark past abroad. I want to know just how dark it is. Nicholas is working on it. He says he'll have something by today. Tell him I need it by the end of the day today. The light turned green, and I pulled into the daycare parking lot. Leo's group was on the 3rd floor. I went up and saw him through the door window, diligently drawing at a small table, the tip of his tongue sticking out as he gripped a crayon. The teacher came to me and said quietly, Leo drew a family portrait today. He said he's going to give it to his mommy. A family portrait. I took the paper. On it were 3 crudely drawn figures. One big, one smaller, and a tiny one between them. They all had smiles like inverted crescent moons. But there were only 3 figures. Mommy, Leo, and a dog. Where's Daddy? I asked Leo later. He shook his head and answered in his childish voice. Daddy made Mommy cry. I don't want Daddy anymore. I picked him up, burying my face in his small shoulder. He smelled of baby soap and that special, milky scent that makes your nose tingle. Let's go home. Back home, I changed Leo, set him up with building blocks in the living room, and went to my study to open the laptop. There was an email from my older brother, Nicholas. Subject, Catherine Adler. I opened the attachment, a massive dossier. I scrolled down until I stopped on the 3rd page. It was a scan of a foreign document from 5 years ago, with the logo of a European research institute. Catherine Adler was listed as the 4th member of the development team. The project title was circled in red by Nicholas. Export of military-grade material technologies. I scrolled further. A second document, a customs declaration. In the 3 months before her return to the U.S., Catherine had flown 4 times to a country under strict international control for military technologies. A third document, an email. Sender, Catherine. Recipient, an anonymous overseas address. The email contained the phrase, "Samples have been sent via a third party." I reread the documents 3 times, then dialed Nicholas's number. "Nicholas, I've seen it all." My brother's voice was icy, but I could feel the rage simmering beneath. "What do you think?" "She's not running a business. She's engaged in industrial espionage." A pause on the other end. When Nicholas spoke, the words seemed to tear through clenched teeth. "You're right. Her overseas project is on sanctions lists. Right before she came back, critical material samples disappeared from that lab. Interpol is still investigating, and she brought this into Donovan Shaw's base. Or rather, through Donovan's tech contract, she integrated these developments into military logistics." Nicholas took a breath. "Do you understand what this means?" "Of course. It means Donovan Shaw didn't just cheat on his wife. He was used. The woman hiding behind the title of childhood friend used him as a springboard to smuggle something forbidden into a place where it's forbidden." "Did Donovan know about this?" I asked. "Based on the documents, probably not," Nicholas replied. "But ignorance is no excuse. He's the project lead. All approvals went through him. If he was blinded by feelings and turned a blind eye to due diligence, he'll have to answer for it." "Nicholas, is this enough for a criminal case?" "More than enough. But there's a problem." "What?" "Jurisdiction. This involves military facilities and national security. Regular law enforcement is powerless here. To get Catherine, the FBI and Army CI have to get involved. Can Alex arrange that?" Nicholas was silent for a moment, then chuckled. "Your middle brother is a lieutenant general. The base's counterintelligence unit reports directly to his command structure. When I called Alex, he was in his office. Sloan, I've received the materials." His voice was even lower than usual. It reminded me of our father right before he lost his temper. "I have already notified the head of the FBI's local field office and the Army's Technical Security Service. They are conducting a preliminary assessment." "How long will it take?" "The security service says they need to trace the financial flows of Catherine's company. Minimum 3 days. 3 days is too long," I said. "She might try to escape." Alex fell silent. "You're afraid she'll get away?" "If she spent that many years overseas, she definitely has escape routes. The IRS is already on her. She's surely panicking. She won't get away." My brother's voice cut like a dull knife. "I've already contacted the FBI's border services. She's on a no-fly list. She won't even get past the metal detector at JFK." I felt a little calmer, but it wasn't enough. "Alex, there's someone else." "Donovan Shaw." My brother said the name for me. "Yes." I stood by the study window, watching the sunset. If Catherine's case is exposed, Donovan's career will be destroyed. But I don't want him to just lose his job. I want him to understand what he's done." Alex was silent for a long time. "Sloan." His voice took on the tone of an older brother. "Are you sure you want to see this through to the end? If the FBI gets involved, Donovan is facing more than just a suspension. It's arrest, isolation, a trial." "I know." I looked at my reflection in the glass, superimposed on the lights of the night city. "Alex, when he ordered them not to let me in, did he think about the consequences? When he dragged Catherine into the base, did he think about the honor of his uniform, Row 80? When he gave her an $80 million contract, did he remember his duty to his country?" My voice was quiet, but it hit like a steel hammer. He didn't think about any of it, so now, he'll pay for it himself. Alex didn't try to dissuade me anymore. The men of the Blackwood family never ask you to look back. They only ask, "Have you made your decision?" And if the answer is yes, they break through any wall. "Tomorrow at 9 a.m., he said. "Army CI and the FBI are heading to Catherine's office. Are you coming with me?" "I'm coming too?" "Yes. You are the source of this investigation, and the main witness. And didn't you want Donovan to understand what he did? Tomorrow, he will understand." The next morning, at exactly 8:30 a.m., I was at the Corps headquarters building. Alex came out in his daily uniform, the general's stars glittering in the sun. A dozen plainclothes FBI agents and military counterintelligence officers followed him. "Let's go." My brother glanced at me and opened the door of a black SUV with military plates. The convoy pulled onto the avenue and headed toward the city's financial district, to Catherine's office. The office was located on the 16th floor of a tower. When we went up, agents from the Economic Crimes Unit and the IRS were already working in the lobby. Document seizures were underway in the finance department. Alex led the way, his heavy boots echoing on the marble floor. I followed him through the open plan office, straight to the CEO's office. The door was ajar, and I heard Catherine's voice. She was speaking on the phone, very quietly, but the words were discernible. Yes, I understand. The ticket is already booked. I'm flying out tonight. Have you moved the assets? Donovan Shaw is under fire himself. There's no point in relying on him. Alex glanced at me and pushed the door open. Catherine sat at a huge desk, pressing the phone to her ear. When she saw us, she turned white as a sheet. She dropped the phone and jumped up, pushing her chair back so hard it hit the wall. Who are you? What right do you have to burst into my office? Alex didn't deign to answer. An FBI agent stepped forward, took a document from a folder, and placed it on the table. Miss Catherine Adler, under the authority of the United States Code, on suspicion of espionage and illegal trafficking of dual-use technologies, a criminal investigation has been opened against you. This is the official notice and a search warrant. Catherine's lips turned white. You've made a mistake. I'm not. I'm just a project manager. I have an official contract with the base. Then explain this. The agent opened a tablet. On the screen was a statement showing a transfer of $3 million. The recipient. A shadow account in the Cayman Islands controlled by a criminal group involved in smuggling military technologies. Catherine swayed. And this. The agent swiped the screen. It was the same foreign document. This is your project from 5 years ago, related to military-grade materials. By law, individuals involved in such projects are required to declare it upon entering the U.S. and undergo a security screening. You did not. Catherine began to shake. And finally, a screenshot of that same email. You sent this before returning to the U.S. Samples have been sent via a third party. What were those samples? Catherine didn't answer. She backed away, stumbled on her high heels on the edge of the carpet, and nearly fell. Gripping the edge of the desk so hard her nails scraped the wood, she stammered. I don't know what you're talking about. I demand my lawyer. Please do, Alex interjected, his voice as cold as well water. But you will not be leaving this office, and your communication devices are being confiscated. A female agent took Catherine's phone from the desk. She watched as the phone disappeared into a plastic evidence bag, and a genuine, animalistic fear appeared in her eyes. The fear of someone who thought they had everything under control, only to suddenly find all escape routes cut off. You can't do this to me, she suddenly shrieked, her voice cracking into a hysterical falsetto. Do you even know who I am? I grew up with Donovan Shaw. He's a base commander. If you do anything to me, he'll grind you to dust. Donovan Shaw. Alex repeated the name without the slightest emotion. And are you aware of where Donovan Shaw is right now? Catherine froze. Alex took out his phone, dialed a number, and put it on speaker. Colonel Mitchell, this is General Blackwood. Where is Colonel Shaw right now? Mitchell's voice from the command office sounded weary. General, sir. Shaw was relieved of duty yesterday after the ceremony. As of 0800 this morning, he has been officially confined to the stockade. Investigators from the Military Prosecutor's Office and CI are already conducting interrogations. The main topic is his negligence in signing the contract with Adler's company. The speakerphone broadcast Mitchell's words throughout the office. Catherine's face went from white to gray, as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over her. No, it can't be. He promised to protect me. He promised. She mumbled, her voice getting quieter and quieter until she collapsed into her chair. Her expensive makeup was smeared by cold sweat. Mascara ran down her face. Looking at her, I felt no schadenfreude, only a cold clarity. Catherine, I said. She looked up at me with a dazed expression. You asked Donovan, would you be with me if I hadn't left? It doesn't matter what he thought. What matters is that your actions have secured you a one-way ticket to a federal prison for many years to come. Her eyes widened. I stepped closer and looked down at her. Did you get close to him because of your feelings? Or because he was conveniently a commander in charge of a technology project? Her lips trembled, but she remained silent. Her face, however, said it all. Alex waved his hand. 2 agents stood on either side of Catherine. Miss Adler, please come with us. The entire office saw her being led away. She walked between 2 uniformed officers, her face gray, her hair disheveled. One of her shoes had fallen off, and she walked barefoot on one foot. The employees who had been fawning over her just yesterday were now hiding behind their monitors, afraid to even breathe. I stood by the office door, watching her go. Nicholas called. "Sloan, excellent news." His voice was full of triumph. "The FBI has taken over Adler's case. The white-collar crime has been reclassified as treason and espionage. Her hidden accounts, her contacts, everything is under a microscope. Interpol is already going after that criminal group, and Donovan will be under investigation for at least a month. If he's lucky, he'll be demoted and dishonorably discharged. If he's not, you know what happens." I walked to the 16th floor window. New York was spread out like a map. Somewhere in the distance, I could see the base. Those gates I had entered for 4 years now seemed like a tiny gray dot. "Will you ever go back there?" asked Alex, who had come up behind me. I shook my head. "No." "What about your things?" "I don't need anything. Nothing except Leo's things." Alex was silent for a moment, then patted me on the head. He hadn't done that in years, not since I got my first A in school. "Let's go home." We exited the high-rise into the bright sunlight. Before getting into the car, I glanced back at the tower. The lights were on in Catherine's office on the 16th floor. She would never return there. As for Donovan, he was probably sitting in a windowless interrogation room right now, replaying every decision he'd made over the last 3 months. Remembering how he led his friend onto the base, how he melted at her sweet words, how he signed documents without looking. He would understand everything. He would understand that it wasn't my call to my brother that destroyed him, not the Blackwood's vengeance, not even Catherine's espionage. He destroyed himself. As we drove through the city, Alex suddenly said, "Sloan, do you remember what Dad wrote in his will for you?" I froze. I was 12 when Dad died. His will was addressed to Nicholas, but my older brother later told me that at the very end, Dad had left a line specifically for me. "If Sloan is ever hurt, the doors of the Blackwood home are always open for her." I thought it was just a comforting phrase. "Dad left you more than just those words," Alex said. "He left you 15% of the corporation's shares. Nicholas managed them for you, and now it's time for you to take them fully into your own hands. And another thing." Alex's gaze deepened. "Dad left us connections, authority, power. That was left to the entire Blackwood family. That's why Catherine Adler's case is not just your personal problem." His voice became hard, like our father's. "If someone touches a Blackwood, they have to pay. Donovan Shaw is just the beginning. Catherine is just the beginning. All their accomplices. Everyone who turned a blind eye. Everyone who took bribes, no one will get away. The Blackwoods are starting a cleanup. No mercy." I leaned back in my seat. The ice inside me finally melted completely. My phone pinged. A photo from the daycare teacher. Leo was doing his morning exercises, standing at the front of the line, seriously stretching his chubby little arms. Below was a caption. "Leo became the group leader today. He said he's going to protect all the other kids." Protect the other kids. I zoomed in on the photo, looked at his chubby cheeks, and smiled. On the 3rd day after Catherine's arrest, the news swept through the base. They said the FBI had taken her straight from her office in handcuffs, that she was part of a huge spy ring. I didn't listen to the gossip. I spent time with Leo and prepared for the divorce. Anne hired a lawyer for me, a woman named Miss Hayes, in her 40s, a specialist in divorce cases who had never lost a case. After reviewing my materials, she took off her glasses and said, "Mrs. Blackwood, in 15 years of practice, I have never seen a case that is so easily won. Donovan Shaw cheated, tried to divert assets through an insurance policy, and is under investigation by the FBI. This policy with his lover is enough for the court to grant you sole custody without question. And given the Shaws' financial mess and debts, they have no voice at all." "I don't just want custody," I said. "I'll take everything. Property, apartments, cars. What's mine will remain mine. I don't want anything of his. And I want to change Leo's last name." The lawyer nodded. "It will be done." News from Alex continued to come in. Donovan's interrogations were nonstop. Counterintelligence found that 3 security reports in Catherine's project were crudely forged. Any rookie auditor would have noticed, but Donovan signed off. He was the one in charge and put his signature on them. "He's not blind," Alex told me over the phone. "He just didn't read them at all." He told investigators he trusted Catherine. Trusted. The word sounded like a cruel joke coming from Alex. He trusted her, so he brought her to the base. He trusted her, So he gave her an $80 million contract. He trusted her, so he signed without looking. Now that trust would cost him his rank and his freedom. Catherine's case moved quickly, as a priority. She was facing 15 to 18 years for treason and espionage. She turned out to be a cog in an international smuggling machine. She had chosen Shaw specifically as a convenient target. She knew he still had feelings for her. From beginning to end, Donovan was just a key used to open a door, a key that was then thrown away. A week later, the lawyer Miss Hayes delivered the divorce papers to Donovan. He was in the stockade. No visits, no calls, but legal documents could be delivered. That day, Colonel Mitchell called me. Mrs. Blackwood. Shaw received the papers. His voice was tense. He reacted very emotionally, said he won't sign anything and demands to see you. We have nothing to talk about. Tell him all the terms are in accordance with the law. If he doesn't sign voluntarily, I'll file in court. And he already has enough problems with the tribunal. He should use his head. Mitchell sighed. I'll pass it on. I stood on the balcony, looking at the tall poplar trees in the yard. The wind rustled the green leaves. Footsteps sounded behind me. Mommy! Leo hugged my leg. When are we going to Grandma's old house? I knelt and picked him up. We'll go this weekend. Grandma misses you. Mommy, are we never going back to Daddy's? Never. I held him close. We'll live with Grandma and our uncles now. Mommy will never let anyone turn you away from a home again. Leo nodded seriously and whispered into my shoulder, Mommy, don't cry. But I wasn't crying. Since that day, there had been no more tears. A week later, Donovan signed the divorce papers. Miss Hayes brought me the agreement, with Donovan's crooked, hard-pressed signature on every page. He asked to see his son, she said. I told him that you have full custody, and visitation will be arranged separately. Besides, being in detention, he objectively cannot see him. As for changing Leo's last name, everything is also ready. Your older brother's lawyers expedited everything. In a month, he will officially be a Blackwood. Excellent. When Catherine's case went to trial, Donovan's mother called me. Her voice was hoarse, like sandpaper. She begged me to spare Donovan for his son's sake. Mrs. Shaw, I replied, I didn't arrest him, and I didn't file a case against him. The state is doing that. The woman he led into a secure facility turned out to be a spy. Did I force him to forge documents? Silence on the line. As for your company's debts to the Blackwood Corporation, that's business. Even without the current situation, we would have held you accountable for the failed contract. You're heartless, she cried. We were blind to let you into our family. Mrs. Shaw, your son was indeed blind. But he wasn't blind to me. He couldn't distinguish between those who genuinely loved him and those who were just using him. He was blind for all these 4 years. I hung up and added her number to my block list. 3 months later, the autumn wind brought the smell of fallen leaves. I was driving to the old family estate in the countryside. Anne sat beside me. In the back, Leo was in his car seat with a toy dinosaur. Sloan, there's news, Anne said. The verdict came down for Adler. 18 years in a maximum security prison with confiscation of property. Her lawyers will appeal, but there's zero chance. The FBI did a clean job. 18 years. I mentally repeated it and asked, and Donovan? The military court's decision. Stripped of rank, dishonorably discharged from the armed forces without severance. He gave the army 16 years and left in disgrace. No one even came to say goodbye. We pulled into the driveway of the old estate. I turned off the engine but didn't get out right away. Sloan. Anne began. I'm not sad, Anne. My sister covered my hand with hers. I know. Mom was waiting for us on the porch in a cozy wool sweater. Seeing the car, she smiled. Leo jumped out and ran to her. Grandma! Grandma! The house smelled of homemade pot roast and baked chicken. While Leo played with a construction set, I went out to the backyard. The old oak tree I used to climb as a child stood there. Under it was my father's wicker chair. I sat in it, turning my face to the autumn sun. My phone vibrated. A message from Nicholas. Blackwood Corporation's board has approved the reorganization. Your 15% of shares are now officially under your management. Documents are in your email. Welcome home, Sloan Blackwood. Then a message from Alex. Order regarding Donovan Shaw has been distributed to all units in the Corps. The Catherine Adler spy ring case is successfully closed. The FBI expressed its gratitude to the Blackwood family. If Dad were alive, he would be proud. I read the message several times. Then I found William Shaw, Donovan's father. in my contacts, and sent a short message. Mr. Shaw, in accordance with the agreement from 3 years ago, the Blackwood Corporation is initiating the seizure of your company's assets. Please arrange for the transfer of affairs within 30 days. Otherwise, we will proceed with forced collection. Send. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. The autumn wind rustled in the crown of the old oak. Footsteps. Mommy. Leo laid his head on my lap. Grandma says it's time to eat. I picked him up. Leo, starting today, your last name is Blackwood. Leo tilted his head, thought for a moment, and asked, and Mommy is a Blackwood? And Grandma is a Blackwood? And Uncle Alex? We're all Blackwoods? Yes. I kissed his forehead. We're all the Blackwood family. Leo laughed happily, revealing 2 new teeth, jumped down, and ran into the house. Grandma, I'm a Blackwood now. The phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number. Sloan, it's Catherine Adler. I'm writing to you from prison. I know you won't forgive me, but I want to say one thing. Donnie knew nothing about the technology smuggling. He just trusted me too much. He was a blind idiot, and all the blame is on me. His only mistake was meeting me. I read the message and deleted it. No. Donovan Shaw's only mistake wasn't meeting Catherine. His mistake was that, while married to me, he held another woman in his heart. His mistake was that he remained silent when his family needed protection. His mistake was that he threw his wife and son out for his friend. Catherine would never understand that. Perhaps even Donovan himself wouldn't. But I no longer needed their understanding. When I entered the dining room, steaming pot roast with carrots, baked chicken with apples, and creamy mashed potatoes were on the table. My sister Anne was pouring red wine. Nicholas and Alex were arguing about something by the window, but when they saw me, they raised their glasses. Welcome back, Sloan Blackwood, Nicholas said. Alex smirked and patted the chair next to him. Sit here. Leo was already devouring a chicken leg, his nose smeared with sauce. This was my family. These were the Blackwoods. Eat before it gets cold, Mom said, picking up her spoon. Anne suddenly put down her fork. By the way, Sloan, Donovan's mother tried to contact me today. She wanted to see Leo. I told her Leo is a Blackwood now and has no relation to the Shaws. She can sue for a visitation schedule if she dares. Good call, Nicholas remarked casually. Alex was silent but looked at me questioningly. Should we press further? I shook my head. Enough. Donovan has lost his rank, his career, his family, and his son. From a promising commander, he has become a disgracefully discharged failure. That's enough for the rest of his life. Lunch ended around 3 p.m. The brothers were the first to leave. At the gate, Alex turned back to me. Sloan, Dad told me something before he died. Of all the children, he worried most about you. You were the youngest. He was afraid you'd get hurt. He looked at me with a smile. Now I think Dad can rest easy. He got into his dark green General's SUV. The engine purred, and the car disappeared around the bend. My sister Anne came out onto the porch. Let's go inside. It's getting cold. Thank you, Anne. She ruffled my hair. Don't mention it. Go on. I looked up. The autumn sky was high and blue. My phone pinged in my coat pocket. A notification from the bank. Dividend deposit from Blackwood Corporation shares. The amount was substantial. I put the phone in my pocket and went inside. The living room was warm, bathed in a yellow light. Leo was playing with a new dinosaur and ran to me with a laugh. Anne was laughing on the sofa with a glass of wine. Mom was bustling in the kitchen. And outside the window, in the autumn twilight, the old oak tree stood strong and reliable, its roots running deep into the earth, just like the Blackwood family.